Hello everyone and welcome back to JT on the Go. Today we will be visiting the National Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. I recommend getting your free timed entry ticket at www.ushmm.org before you go. Before you enter the museum, you can pick one of these papers up if you want to. It is a story about a person that survived or died in the Holocaust. You don't have to get one, but I recommend you to get one.
All the way to bed.
The Holocaust was the murder of 6 million Jews during World War II. To this day, it is one of the worst genocides we know of. A genocide is when one group tries to make another group extinct. You may hear the term anti-Semitism. That means hostility to or prejudice against Jewish people. Europe has a long history of anti-Semitism. Going back to the Middle Ages, Christians viewed Jews with suspicion for not following Christianity. When the Black Plague or Black Death rolled around, Christians blamed the Jews for spreading the virus and slaughtered many. Before World War II, Germany was the center of modern thought and culture, and many Jews settled in Germany. It started when Germany was defeated in World War I. The Treaty of Versailles was very harsh on Germany. It later fueled the Great Depression, and Germany was on the verge of total collapse. Then people began to follow Adolf Hitler, the leader of Nazi Germany. When Hitler rose to power, he claimed the Jews were to blame for the loss of World War I and the Great Depression. In 1935, the Nuremberg Laws took citizenship away from all Jews and described German and Jew as different races. The law stated that only locals with German blood could be citizens of Germany, and citizens had equal rights. Other groups were also affected. Other laws singled out gay people, communists, and the disabled. Basically, people that didn't fit the Nazis' idea of a pure white race with blonde hair and blue eyes. Many Jews stayed in Germany, but some left. This is why Albert Einstein moved to America. Jews were later forced to wear yellow stars or the Jewish logo on them so German locals know who to target. The locals were also encouraged to attack them on the streets. Then German locals began destroying Jews' archives and shops and murdered 90 Jews. This was called Kristallnacht or the Night of Broken Glass. The SS, the National Police of Germany, wore normal clothes to blend in with the crowd of angry locals. The Jews responded by trying to get out of Germany to countries like the United States, but the US refused to change its laws to allow Jews to move here. The Nazis later won a third of the seats in Parliament, or the German Congress in Berlin. Then Hitler became the leader of Germany. Someone later burned down the parliament, but they did not know who did it. Hitler used it as an excuse to blame the Jews, and he had them arrested. Hitler later banned freedom of speech, protest, and religion. This is what made him a dictator. In May of 1939, a ship called the St. Louis sailed toward Cuba. It carried 936 Jews, all of whom had legal entry visas, but Cuba denied them port entry at the last minute. The United States and Canada also turned them away. The captain refused to go back to Germany until his passengers found safe harbor. The ship's passengers were later divided. Some were dropped off at Britain, some in Belgium, some in the Netherlands, and some in France. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, beginning World War II. This was deemed useful to Germany because a lot of Jews that left Germany settled in Poland. In the beginning, Nazi Germany was unstoppable. They invaded almost half of Europe with very little options. They only occupied half of Poland because the Soviet Union was their friend and occupied the other half. Italy was another friend to Germany. Then Germany invaded France. France later surrendered to Germany because they were scared. This brought more and more Jews into the Nazi hands. Even the ones that thought they had escaped, like the passengers dropped off by the St. Louis. By 1941, almost all of Europe was under German control. Germany also broke their promise with the Soviet Union, but Joseph Stalin later drove them back. This is what Nazi Germany basically looked like at its heights. The Germans also placed many Jews in ghettos. Warsaw, the capital of Poland, is where the big ones were. These are pictures of some of the Jews that perished. Hitler literally wanted the Jews gone from the face of the earth, so the Nazis presented the final solution, a program that was put into effect to exterminate the Jews. Auschwitz was one of the major death camps. One of the famous Jews that wasn't so lucky as Albert Einstein was Anne Frank. Anne was born in Germany in 1929. When the Nazis took control of Germany, Anne and her family moved to the Netherlands. Her father, Otto Frank, owned a jam factory in Amsterdam, the capital of the Netherlands. When Germany invaded the Netherlands, they sent a notice for Anne's older sister, Margot, to be sent to a concentration camp. Because of this, the Franks went into hiding along with four other people in the secret annex. Today, it is a museum. Anne got her diary on her 13th birthday and used it to record her thoughts for more than 2 years. As the war dragged on, there were four people that knew about the annex and brought them supplies every day. They risked jail time and even death for their kindness. After D-Day, the Nazis found all 8 members and took them away. Anne's diary was left behind. One of the helpers, Miep Gies, kept it safe and was originally planning to give it back to Anne after she was liberated. The family members were sent to Auschwitz. With the Soviet Union advancing, the Germans decided to take some prisoners out of Auschwitz. Anne and Margot ended up at Bergen-Belsen, deep inside Germany. Anne and Margot later died at the camp just weeks before Britain liberated the camp. Otto was the only resident of the secret annex to survive the war. Anne's diary was later published. Today, the diary of Anne Frank is read all over the world. The Germans tried to invade Britain, but the Royal Air Force did not go down without a fight. They successfully defended their country. The Nazis used trains to carry large number of Jews to the death camps. The cars that they stuffed them in are called cattle trucks. Romania was also invaded by the Nazis, and some Jews were exported while others were killed in the concentration camps that were set up by Germany in Romania. Trains always play a big role in warfare. For the Nazis, trains transported food, weapons, and other needed supplies to the German fronts. The Germans also transported Jews on these trains. Auschwitz was a hub for the rail network. This is not how you would want to travel by train. The journey was very harsh. They were crammed in a rail car. There were no bathrooms and no dining car. Up to 100 people were stuffed into a single car. The trains hauled from 1 to 2,000 Jews, sometimes as many as 5,000 Jews. The weight slowed the trains down and made the locomotives more fuel hungry. The top speed was 30 miles per hour, and that is not fast. Some of these trains pulled into sidings and stations for hours and even days. The sanitation was horrible. In winter, the passengers were exposed to the freezing cold, and in the summer, they were suffocated by the heat. Many that were deported died on the way. As you can see, it is very dark here. Upon arriving, the ones that were not strong enough to work, this is mainly elderly people and very young children, were immediately sent to the gas chambers. The rest were tasked with working, making weapons for the German war effort. As you can see on this map, it shows all of the camps of the network. The Nazis had hundreds of camps across Europe. Life in the camps was brutal. Nazi camps held 100,000 inmates. The Jews were forced to work long hours with very little food. Millions died from starvation, disease, abuse, and shootings. The Germans also shot and killed Jews. This everyday life in the camps was like slave labor. But the majority of prisoners were killed in gas chambers that were constructed for the final solution. The SS bamboozled the prisoners, saying the gas chambers were showers, but they were disguised as showers and would release harmful gas instead of water. This video shows a model of the gas chamber killing process. As you can see, the prisoners were marched into the gas chambers. If you look closely, some of them were young children and some were elderly. The SS also had dogs. In the underground chamber, they are getting undressed because they think it's a shower. Then the unthinkable happens. At the top, a person is putting the gas in through a pipe. Then it sprays to fill the room with toxic fumes. Some are gasping for air, while others have already perished. Then the bodies were later cremated or burned. This was also a job that some of the prisoners that were alive did. This door was the door that sealed them in. The cans on the bottom were the gas fumes used for killing. This is an example of a bunk the prisoners slept in. There were no blankets or sheets, so they were exposed to the cold. This room is where you can sit and listen to the stories of the survivors. Today, the Nazi prison camps serve as memorials and they are open to tourists. This is one of the ovens where they cremated dead bodies. This is the lower level of the pictures of the Jews that died. Hate is real and it is taught. That upper bridge is where we came from earlier. Like I said before, the Soviets turned against Nazi Germany and drove them back. A large group of allies led by General and future President Dwight D. Eisenhower landed in Normandy, France, and began driving the Germans back. The Allies also invaded Italy, and Italy surrendered. The locals later killed their leader Mussolini and hung him on the streets. This made the German front lines very thin. Now Germany is the only country in Europe fighting against the Allies. Europe and the United States drove the Germans back from the west, and the Soviets drove them back from the east. While the Allies advanced, they also liberated several concentration camps, and they were shocked by what they discovered. The Soviets liberated Auschwitz and other camps in the east. Britain liberated several camps in the northwestern part of Europe, like Bergen-Belsen. They later burned Bergen-Belsen. The United States liberated several concentration camps in southwestern Europe. From 1944 to 1945, the process was picking up. Adolf Hitler killed himself in his bunker during the Battle of Berlin against the Soviets. Germany later surrendered, and that concluded World War II in Europe. But the war was not over. The United States would continue fighting Japan, the last Axis power. Japan surrendered in 1945 after the dropping of the atomic bomb, and that is what ended the rest of World War II. However, there were Jews that were saved. The Danish Jews had hid on boats and traveled to Sweden. Sweden wasn't invaded by the Nazis. Switzerland, Spain, and Portugal were the other three countries that the Nazis did not invade. After the defeat of Nazi Germany, the SS officers that operated the camps were being tried and sentenced for their war crimes. This is where the crimes against humanity was created. But most of the SS officers did not get their trials because they committed suicide. They knew they would be dead. The United Nations was also formed after World War II. First, they included 51 countries. Now they include 193 countries. They took steps to prevent another Holocaust by punishing genocide and welcoming immigrants fleeing from violence. But genocides still happened around the world, and governments rarely act in time to stop them. Like the Rwandan genocide in 1994, the United Nations had to get involved with that one. After the war, many Jews left Europe and claimed Israel, and this created a whole set of other issues. Israel is where the Jew religion started and it spread to Europe. Another favorite place was America because the US was the promised land. But anti-Semitism still did not stop. In 2018, the deadliest anti-Semitic attack in U.S. history occurred at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, here in the United States. 11 worshippers were killed just because they were Jewish, and the shooter had a lot of hatred in him. But thankfully, the Jewish community is still alive to this day. We need to learn that hate has no place in society, like we learned in the National Museum of African American History and Culture series. All men are created equal. This is a room of candles to honor the ones who died. For Jews, it is a custom to lay a stone for remembrance. That I find very interesting. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe if you haven't for more JT on the Go. This is JT on the Go signing off.